So on this very special day, celebrating the Day of the Seafarers and these unsung heroes around the globe that have kept the world working during COVID, Oceans Arena Stage is hosting the Welcome on Board panel, and in introductory remarks, we have Esben Poulsson, who is the Vice President of the Mission to Seafarers and the Chairman of the International Chamber of Shipping. Esben, over to you.
Thank you very much, Gina, for this opportunity. I think the general public are probably not aware that the world's approximately 74,000 ships, and that these people quietly, and as you so rightly said, Gina, these unsung heroes get on with their job in delivering 90% of the world's goods to distributed to the world, and at a value, an annual value of close to $14 trillion US. The problem for the general public, I think, is that they are not very aware of this fact, and because seafarers are largely invisible, ports are very often away from city centers and so forth, and so the general public aren't that aware of the fantastic job that the seafarers do. But I must say that the ever-given grounding in the Suez Canal in April of 2021 did, I think, bring into focus the tremendous job that shipping does and that seafarers do in literally delivering the goods globally. That particular ship had 24,000 containers on board, and I'm sure that many people were delayed in receiving their television sets or their Nike shoes or whatever the product that it may have been. But I think the incident, the general public, that there is this service that goes on behind the scenes in many ways, and very often unrecognized. So really, my plea to the general public is, just as when you board an aircraft, you probably appreciate the people in the front of the bus, so to speak. So when you buy a product, think about the seafarer. Think about these people who, during COVID particularly, in many cases, served months beyond their committed contract period in order to continue to deliver the goods in very difficult circumstances, often ports not allowing them to get off the ship, and so for months on end, confined on board and facing great difficulty going home at the end of a contract or an extended contract or rejoining a ship. So yes, my plea is, please salute them, recognize them, and appreciate them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that introductory comment there, Esben. I know the ICS has done an incredible job. The Mission to Seafarer is doing an incredible job to support them. And I think it was quite important to let the public know what the real story is. And that relation in respect to the plane, I think it's quite accurate. You do want to know and see what your taxi driver is doing, what the pilots are doing, and you appreciate it. So the same should be applied for seafarers. Thank you for joining us, Esben. Unless you would like to add a final note, we can move on to the seafaring panel.
No, that's all. Thank you very much for inviting me on, Gina. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Esben Poulsson, Chairman of International Chamber of Shipping and Vice President of the Mission to Seafarers. Thank you very much, Esben, for that beautiful opening remarks. It's always a pleasure to have you join the panels, and especially on this subject, which I know you're so passionate about and a very passionate advocate of seafarers worldwide. And now, of course, I'm moving on to our incredible panel discussion. Welcome on board. What seafarers wish you would know. I'm Gina, Panayiotou, the host of this show of Oceans Arena Stage. It's a pleasure to have you all here today to celebrate this very important day for our industry, the Day of the Seafarer, as set by the International Maritime Organization on the 25th of June every year. It's a great day for celebration, a great day to raise awareness. So I thought, since we've all probably come across of lists like what hotel employees would like guests to know, or what pilots would like airplane passengers, to know. Today, given the opportunity of the Day of the Seafarer, we've gathered together an amazing crew to share with us what they wish the world would know about seafarers, what they would understand, what they would appreciate. And without further ado, I will introduce this incredible panel, starting with Engineer Essam Alammari, who is the permanent representative of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at the IMO. He also has 13 years in service at the Royal Saudi Naval Forces. Captain Londy Ngcobo, I tried my best, Londy on your surname, who is a global ship navigator and Africa's first female dredger master. Yrhen Balinis, who is a Human Rights at Sea Advisory Board, IMO Goodwill Maritime Ambassador. He has sailed as a cadet. He likes to call himself an ordinary seafarer. I personally think he's far from it. And today he is actually celebrating the passing of his officer in charge of Navigation Watch. So congratulations on that. A clap there. To a bright journey ahead, which I'm sure. Moving on to Captain Gina Darsaklis, who's a Class A captain at Olympic Shipmanagement and has 8 years of sailing experience. Captain Rami Breiki, who is a master mariner with 12 years of sailing experience, the founder and managing director of Zenith Maritime Services, and co-founder and CEO of Neonautica. And Yiannis Fafalios, last but not least, of course, who is the CEO of Care for Sea, who does an incredible job on welfare of seafarers, and who has sailed as a cadet. He is also the operations management at Fafalios Limited. So I've gathered everybody from around the world. We've got different time zones, Dubai, London, Piraeus, Durban. Some are actually flying to other destinations. So let's start this discussion and see how we can put together this list. But before we go into it, maybe we can start with what a typical day at sea looks like or has looked like for you, those who were ex-seafarers. Yrhen, would you like to start, since I can see you first on my list, and we'll make the rounds?
Right, awesome. So being the youngest here, I guess I have the most mundane one. I wake up early in the morning at around 6 or 7, and then I eat breakfast prepared by chief cook. Commonly we have it eggs and then rice. Of course, as Filipinos, we are fond of rice. We have to have carbohydrates, and then we proceed to go to what Bosun will be giving as a job order, and then probably that will be a painting, or if you're lucky enough, you'll just be doing the accommodation cleaning. That's one of my easy tasks. And then of course, after which lunch. I like the painting part because it shows my creativity. Although it really is not creative per se, but at least I have the chance to paint and then to mix colors, which is fascinating. Also, after which, by 5 o'clock, if we are underway and we are not in port, we commonly finish work at 5 o'clock. And then after which it dinner, and then at 8 o'clock or at 7:30, I have to go on watch with third officer, who's actually, I've been with so many officers who are very supportive, and I would not be here if I was not motivated and supported by my officers and crew. I guess it's one of the things that cadets and of course senior level officers that they have to realize how impactful, how life-changing their words and their action towards those who are just beginning in the career. Because as I believe, as they say, a village, it takes a village to raise a child, but I'd like to revise that a little bit. It takes a vessel to raise an officer. And if it's not for them, if it's not for the people who molded, who supported, I would have not been able to vocalize what I experienced and would not have been here. But in port, it's entirely different stories. But the highlight would be, of course, to go for live.
And I think that what's important to highlight there is how these people on board are your family, basically. You're 24/7 with these people. So it's quite important that the team you're working with is supportive and etc. And maybe to paint the picture a bit better, when you said painting, you made it sound so lovely, but just for people to get the idea, you're not exactly just painting a piece of wall or a fence in the front yard, right?
Yeah, actually, it's more on it's not on the aesthetic, but more on prevention of corrosion and deterioration of the ship. So there, we have special paints for that, more likely.
Because I like to, with this session, I really want to get people to come on board with us on this journey and understand how life at sea is. Going next, Londy, would you like to share your usual day at sea on board?
Yes, maybe just to put more color into what Yrhen has just shared now, having been on land, number one, there's traffic, but nothing like what you see on the road. Traffic to us may just be one ship. That's our life on board. Number one. Number two, you wake up in the morning, you don't go in any taxi, you're already at work. You finish your work, you don't get stuck in any kind of traffic, you're already at home. Number three, you wake up, there's all meals made for you. So no one will tell you and ask you what's for dinner, what's for lunch, have you prepared lunch boxes? That's number three. Lastly, which I find to be fascinating, is that what you would find on land to be your 24/7 friend, and that is the screen. At sea, your screen is the window, the porthole, the beautiful sunsets, and the dolphins chasing the bow, and the fly fish going over the dolphins, and the sunsets, and the sacred sunrise. Just to paint a little bit of a picture, it's nothing like on land. I'm not selling it too much, and I'm actually estimating, maybe I'm even underselling it. But just to put you on perspective, a day-to-day is pretty much what you would find on land. It's just we are in a floating plant and we are in a floating home. But yeah, what you also get to be sold is a penguin suit, like what I'm wearing today. Day to day, I'm on overalls. I only wear this when I go for dinner, and I only wear this when I'm on pilotage. Other than that, I'm dirty in my overalls and with paint and everything else. But yeah, a day-to-day life at sea is just as appealing and just a tad exclusive.
It does sound very unique, and as we know, it is a very unique experience with its challenges, though. I mean, waking up and being at work might sound to be a benefit in some cases, but it does have its challenges, I assume. I can only but assume. Captain Rami, would you like to share your usual day at sea?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't have said anything better than the previous two colleagues of us. But bear in mind that there are so many different activities happen on the ship. There are different departments with, I mean, different approaches of their tasks. You have the engine department. They start in a usual working hours, except when at the time there are some, unexpected the problems that they might face, and they could work 24/7. Then you have the normal catering and stewards, the deck department, who also works with the chief officer. You have the OS and ABs, they do also day works. So, but I want to just highlight for the deck departments, meaning the officers, their day starts on odd hours. You have the second officer his day starts at midnight. And basically, once the clock goes midnight, this is where he starts to, go and engage on taking over the watch. Everyone is asleep. Now that you can't see nothing, you are staring at the glare of the screens of the radar and the navigational equipment, trying just to make sense of what can you see at the horizon of any spot of light. It could be traffic, it could be wherever you are on the globe, it could be some kind of navigational aids or whatever. You also have so many things that you have to do during that watch in terms of the publications or taking care of the navigational equipments on the bridge. And then you go on up to 4 in the morning, you hand over to the next officer, you try to get some sleep, then you wake up, do more work. Before noon, you have to go back on that watch. So basically, the time that we face on the ship, it has, I mean, you're never, you don't feel like you are, as Miss Londy said, you never feel like you're commuting to work or going back home. Or no, you are either wide awake working or asleep. So that's somehow, if I think of it, it makes your life a little bit easier when you spend so much time on the ship. So you don't have that time when you start contemplating of how many months I've been on board and all, you're always engaged with your shifts. So that's a different perspective that I feel like, people don't really know what happens to the seafarers. So you finish a contract, you feel like after these kind of, the sea time that you've done, it just went by, and suddenly you're 6 months down the road, and you sign off the ship. You feel like everything has changed. Someone got married, someone had a baby, and so that's the real sacrifice that most seafarers go through. And there are other sacrifices that this is what comes to on the top of my head.
No, definitely. And I mean, it's like putting your life on hold for a certain period of time. And surely during COVID, where we saw contracts going to beyond a year, that must have been just unbelievable. But I'm going to pick up on something that you said on trying to get some sleep. And I'm going to go to Yiannis now, because I know that's one of the things he's quite passionate about, being on board and coming then ashore to try and work on something in this respect. But Yiannis, maybe you can share your thoughts better and how your usual day at sea was.
Yeah, I won't go through everything, because again, also there's very few typical days at sea. There's always something new every day. But I think having a routine is really important. Just having a good daily hygiene. When I say that, I mean a good sleep hygiene, knowing what time you're going to sleep. I'd always make sure I go to the gym. We have gyms on board as well, get physical activity as well. For me, every day would start with a shower, and then you sit there and you have those shower thoughts. It's incredible to think that, the ship creates that water. You have desalination plant, it turns the seawater into fresh and drinking water. These ships are little floating villages, population 20 people, and everything you get in a village you expect on this ship. And that means that when you say seafarer, it's not just, a seafarer. Someone's a plumber, someone's a doctor, a meteorologist, a handyman, a firefighter, an accountant. All these roles are fulfilled on this one ship. We are a real jack of all trades, and you've got to be master of all of them as well. You can't just be a master of a few of them, because when something happens and you're the first responder, you've got to be there and you've got to be ready. And going back to the point about sleep, for instance, which for me is, I think if I say the word, or if I say MLC, I think there might be a few sighs in the people listening, and there we go. Wow, that's what.
Maybe
but yeah, I think
for a different discussion, and
yeah,
we've also
but sleep
share some thoughts.
Exactly, but sleep is really important, and in trying to find a good hygiene, understanding that when your watches and the opportunities when to sleep is vitally important, because we see that fatigue is not just has an impact on how you work, but also your mental and physical health. So it's something that we're hoping to resolve as the years go by, because that is one of the few things that remain relatively untouched in the industry.
Definitely, and it's so important when you have to be so alert and have so many functions and things to think about while you're on board. Essam, would you like to share your thoughts and your perspective of this? We'll leave the MLC out of it at the moment, because I know sitting at the IMO, you might have a few thoughts on that too, but let's discuss a usual day at sea.
Thank you. Even though I would like to ask you to ask Gina to speak first, if she's ready, otherwise I will take her.
Okay, we can have Gina speak first if you insist, of course. I was just
okay. I'm sorry for the back noise. I try to have a silent place. Do you hear me?
Yes, now we do.
Perfect. So I totally agree with Londy, Captain Rami, Bernard. They said the typical day on board, and also the point of view of Yiannis. For me, I'm the above of this. For example, I was waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, having my coffee, and around 7, the bosun and the pumman was in my office, so I had to delegate to them the tasks. After at 8 o'clock, I should have a meeting with chief engineer or captain to discuss the tasks and the jobs that I gave to the crew. We should do the toolbox meeting and the checklist and the protocols and everything to ensure that everything is okay. because unfortunately the seafaring job it's full of checklists. ISM is a good thing, but sometimes for us, the chief mate is giving hard time because 6 to 7, I'm preparing the permits, and after at 5 to 7 or 8, I'm preparing again the permits that I close the jobs. So it's a bit difficult. Later on, I'm sorry for the noise. As you know, I'm in the airport, so have some reclamation, no problem, I'm sorry. Then 8 o'clock, I'm going out on the deck and checking the cadets and the bosun and the AB if they are working as I requested and if they do the job in the safety manner. I'm checking the progress, or maybe I need to make some changes. And this is going through till 5 or 6 certain times. Obviously, we have some rest, 12 to 1 for lunch and some coffee breaks. But still, it's a 24/7 job because as a chief mate, maybe you will be lucky and you will be Damon. But maybe you will do duty on the bridge or in the engine room and you have to be 6 to 6 or you have to do the shifts. And this is more difficult because there you do every day almost the same thing. The only changing is that the view outside the window, as very well you referred before. But mainly it's a routine job that you need to take care. This is my point of view.
Yeah, that's quite a long and demanding day, and I think a well-painted picture. Essam, thank you very much for giving your spot earlier to Gina. Would you like to share your thoughts now as we round up this question?
Sure, and thank you very much for this. And I'm in love with all the stories of our colleagues here and what they said. I'm a little bit different than that. So first of all, I would like to thank you, Mr. Esben and Gina, and the happy day of Seafarers, and for having and giving me this opportunity. As a military officer, it was different in the Navy than being in a cruise ship or in a tanker or others, even though I would love to do a cruise ship myself. So my day, as many here said, my day starts at 6. Usually, you have your daily shower and the thoughts that Yiannis said, shaving as a military because we have to do that, and then wearing your uniform. After that, I start my day always with a coffee and a breath of clean air and a lovely sun, if it is a sunny day. Then our day starts. We have our daily team meeting. On board military ships where I've served, we were between 200 to 300 people on board. So it's a little bit different than on a tanker or other ships, which the team is less on this. So it's not easy to manage all of that on board one of the ships. Then we do the daily work schedule. And then you have to task everybody on what they do. Then, we have to check, for example, the escort of shipping, that we have to escort some of your ships when they are passing in some areas, or we have, the aviation schedule. And then we have to check the maritime picture awareness, what's happening around you. But shifting from this, going to IMO. So IMO, it's a ship again. I don't know for the people who visited IMO among you, there is a shape of a ship in front of the building. We have one captain, which is the Secretary General, of course. But what we do, as in the IMO every day. So, managing between capital, managing between all the countries. We are 175 member states in IMO, plus NGOs, IGOs, and others, with all respect to everyone, of course. So managing this, working groups, planning, reporting, building strategies. So it's a little bit of fun again, but regulating the sector from that building and seeing back where I was a seafarer, but I will be always a seafarer in my heart and thinking of that. So I think basically this is what we do every day as a military. And again, thank you, Gina, and a happy day of Seafarers.
No, thank you very much. And actually, that's one of the reasons that I'm really excited that you could join us, because it's a different perspective and a different kind of career path, which, of course, now being at the IMO, which is a UN body that regulates how we can make improvements and make this a better world for seafarers, the industry and the world generally, is absolutely fantastic. So thank you for being with us, Essam. And thank you, everybody, for starting to paint this picture of what it looks like to be on board. So my next question is going to be, once you're offshore and you're several miles away from the shore, what is the thing that, what does that mean to you? What do you miss the most or fear the most, find most difficult, challenging in those morning thoughts in the shower or whenever, once you've set sail? Maybe I'll shift the table around a little bit and we can start with Londy this time, and yeah.
Absolutely, thanks. I think for me, being out there, it's just beyond a job. It's a service. You know, it's like everyone working up in the morning to say you're going to work, but you're already there. So it's more than a job. It becomes a service. And I think that that's what I've appreciated with the IMO, to make the awareness of seafarers matter, you know. And I think that's what we need to continue to highlight, how important our industry is. So it's beyond just having to travel the world for free. It's a service. And it's making sure that, you know, out there's a child who needs diapers and I'll bring them from China. And out there's somebody who needs something and I'll bring them from wheresoever. So it's beyond being at work. But more than anything, I think the fears that I've always had and that just failed to escape me over time have always been on having to receive that phone call to say some of my loved ones and closest to me is no more. And that's the biggest fear. I must highlight though that the day-to-day, or rather the difficulties, may differ from obviously gender to gender. For a female, I found it to be a tad difficult on board. Being away, you obviously don't have your girls to chat with, so you just become one of the boys, you know, and having to become one of the boys comes with its risks and it also comes with its benefits, you know. So you always have to prove yourself that yes, it is a man's job, but I'm here, hey guys, and I'm part of the guys. And so I do think that it does come with its challenges to be female in the space, or rather on board the ship, and often with most of the ship I was the only female. So the fears also would come with, I don't want to rock any boats with any of my colleagues on board. Otherwise, I may find myself, I'm sorry about that. I may find myself in trouble, or I may find myself discriminated against. So I think those are the difficulties that come through with the fears that I've had to, or rather that I'm still trying to understand how I can shake them off. And I do think that the awareness that we've made on social media through the events, I am on board with gender equality, Seafarers Matter, all of that awareness does decrease the fears there and there. But yeah.
Yes, of course, because most definitely the first step to everything is understanding and what's expected of people and what those challenges are, the real story behind it. So thanks for sharing that. And actually, while of course we're celebrating the Day of the Seafarer, it is good to note the gender equality aspect. So I'll let Gina also share her thoughts before I go on to the voice of our panel today. Because that is a very important matter, and after all, the IMO has now set an official day for women in maritime, so it's good to highlight these challenges between genders also. So Gina, would you like to add on to what Londy has been sharing?
Yeah, initially, well said, Londy, but in my point of view, with my sea service, I'm going to advise you, don't try to fit in. You have your own talents, you have your own personality, you choose to do this job, so you have to keep your talent, your potential. You should not become one of the men. You are not one of the men on board. You are Londy, period. Okay? Secondly, because I had also a seminar regarding women at sea, so I also refer on that. I have to tell you that the mental health is more important these days of the seafarers, no matter if you are a woman, a man, or anything, because the ship, the main purpose of a ship is to go from the point A to point B, no matter if it is a man, no matter if it is a woman on the helm. The matter is to go safely from the point A to point B. So all the people will gonna receive their goods or the gas or the oil all around the globe. This is my point of view. And if you want me to answer for your question and leave the comment of for Londy, one of the main things that we suffer on board, let's say, is the loneliness. Because all day you are occupied, you do your job, you do your shift, you do your shower, and you have your thoughts, but you have your door closed all the time. So you are you, yourself, and the ship, and the noises of the ship that sometimes are creepy, especially in the night. So that moment you're thinking, if I call my family now, they are not awake, but I am awake. Or if I call my boyfriend, my wife, or whoever, you are not the man or the woman you're supposed to be. You are not the friend, the cousin, the sister, the brother, because you are half planet away. So in this distance, you have to be a good seafarer and a good person to be, again, the person who needs your who is required by your family. So the stress is double. This is my point of view.
Yeah, most definitely, and very well understood. Yiannis, would you like to share your thoughts on what fears you have or challenges?
Yeah. Again, I think the mental health is something that I'd also highlight as well. Like the second you go on the ship, you've got to kind of sort of emotionally disassociate from the world. When you're half the world away, and you find out news, of something happening ashore, there's nothing you can do. You are providing support to your family in a completely different way than, any other job on shore is. And, you can't just come back home at the end of the day and resolve these problems. And you've got to hope that you've got a good support network at home, family and friends who will be there for you whilst you're providing your support in your own way. You can give 5 to 10 minutes on a call, or get on now that we have internet on the ships, but that's all you can really do, and worrying about it will then detract from your own self-care. And at the end of the day, you've got to take care of yourself when you're on board the ship. And when you start worrying, the quality of sleep drops, you stop thinking about your own health, eating can get affected, and then you don't relax. You're on standby 24/7, and then to add the worries and stresses and strains, and Londy makes a great point as well, where even if you're on board the ship and you've got your own worries about yourself as well, it shows just how strong, someone has to be mentally to be able to become a seafarer. And for me, that is one of the most important things. Everyone in the room, everyone on this call here, will understand that they've been through something difficult, and they've been able to get through that. Because a lot of people don't finish the colleges for exactly that reason. They said, you know what, I do not want to be away from my family. I need to be there for them. And that's a sacrifice that a seafarer has to make.
Definitely. And I can only begin to imagine how it is. But when Londy was saying, receiving that call and picturing how far away you are, it's just it takes a different dimension in your brain. So you kind of do need to go on autopilot. And this is something I have also seen from friends seafarers. And, once they've left from the airport, it's just they don't even turn back sometimes to say bye because of this reason. Essam, would you like to share your thoughts also on what was the greatest fear you had once you set sail and you're away from shore?
Thank you again, Gina, and it's a very good question, and won't really have the time to speak about all, but I'll try to bring it briefly. So first of all, maybe to Londy and to everyone here, it's something I say that we always say: what does not break you makes you stronger. So a seafarer needs to be strong always. And there is a new word that we came out with a panel in the celebration of the Maritime and Women Day, when the 18th of May. Some of the colleagues and panelists came with a maritime professional title. It is not anymore seafarer, because we have people working at shore too. So we can do that also. This is I wanted to share with you, but meaning it does mean a lot for me being at sea and away of a ship, of the shore, sorry. I really miss being at sea. And what I really miss when I'm at sea is my mom's food, really, because the colleagues here said, it's a set menu. It's always there. It's either, a rice, like Yrhen said, or, I don't know, in Saudi, you will say a kapsa, which is, chicken rice or rice with chicken. This is the change in the menu, it's never. But that was maybe what makes me, gives me more fear, really, is the maritime accidents and incidents. Maybe on board the ship, it happened. It's always there, an alarm, rings up. But I've been facing maybe, and this is more maybe to us, but everybody is involved in this. I've been in attending and intervening in maritime rescue, search and rescue, accidents, which they were really, really, scary. Again, but it needs someone to do it. And I think a seafarer with different genders, just being at sea, and doing this job and being there intervening to help someone, it is important, especially those who are impacting persons, human life, and the environment for sure. The main difficult for me, I would say, being in this sector, and what I want people, knows about, is just not being stable. You are in the States once, you are in China on the other day, that's not the other day for sure, 3 months after, but, we will be always there. But speaking about, mental health, which is very important, and I want to share that with you. In IMO, we are reviewing the models on this, mental health, psychological health, and sexual harassment. And we are working with different groups, different countries, and different friends. And I'm calling on you here. If you have any thoughts on that, please feel free to join the working group or just share it with us, and we will be bringing it with you. So thank you again, keeping the word of maritime professionals, because this is what maybe makes the civilians or the people working inland, that they don't know what we do, is showing them the seafaring and the maritime professionals. Thank you, Gina.
Indeed, that is very, very important. Thank you, Essam, for that. Captain Rami, what does being away from shore mean to you? Your fears, the challenges?
Thank you, Gina. Well, I found that I'm not really an expert on the topic of mental health, but I'll just share my own experience on board. Once you lose sight of shore, you have to deal with different kind of emotions. You become like somehow polarized between being relieved, and I'm sure officers will agree with me, being relieved since you're done with the cargo operations and you're done with all these people coming from outsiders poking into your ship. You feel somehow relieved from the traffic, and you can now focus on, taking care of this vessel and looking after your crew. And you also get the feeling, I'm saying that feeling is wrong, but I'm also getting to the point where the feeling of, getting nostalgic and feeling like you are always away from your loved ones, and you always think that you're missing out on so many things. Even when you see people acting on the jetty, you see how much things that we take for granted when we are at shore. The feeling that you are, you can just start walking in any direction away from the sea. You can have the freedom of commuting, walking here and there. Taking a walk itself is just a privilege that most of us don't really take it seriously. So by coming back to this feeling of relieved when you leave the shore, it is a dangerous feeling, because you feel like whoever is out on the port, like port state control or whoever, somehow most seafarers feel like they are, they have their enemies, that they are the ones who are trying to catch their mistakes. So, which is wrong. I feel like seafarers must feel like they are accepted, and whoever is in charge on the ship should actually talk to his crew and explain to them that whoever is like conducting these vettings or inspections is like really trying to ensure that you are safe out there, not to be like the Davy Jones or the crew of the Flying Dutchman being part of the ship, and you lose a sense of self and you just don't want to get away from everyone. So yeah, this is part of the things that you feel like it's a challenge once you stay away from shore.
Wow, indeed. It is even some of the small things you do really take for granted without realizing. how much freedoms you give up, I guess. And last but not least, Yrhen, would you like to share your thoughts on being away from shore?
Right, thank you very much. Actually, all the points are noted, and I would echo that loneliness is one of the most fearsome and most bothersome that many seafarers are encountering while already on board and far from shore. Now, I've already made this point back in the World Maritime Day webinar last year. I emphasized that stop glorifying resilience. We all know that we have been imbued that seafaring profession is not for the faint-hearted. You have to be tough, you have to be resilient, and everything that. But up to a point that we are already desensitized of our own feelings. Now, instead of glorifying resilience, why not change the system that abuses those resiliency? Now, in our works in the human rights at sea, we actually tackled two of the things that Ma'am Gina and Captain Londy mentioned about gender. Of course, the IMO has had the inaugural International Women in Maritime Day, but there has been so much talk about this issue already, even before in the 90s. But why are we still having the conversation regarding that? Some studies suggest that because there is still not much done. According to the BIMCO ICS report, men are still the majority. We are still 98%, and women in maritime are still at the 2%, less than 2%. Now, also another thing that tangents on the human rights issue, other than gender, is of course youth, because as we move forward in the digitization, in the decarbonization era, that of course IMO has been lobbying forward, because that's where we are going. We also have to attract young generations, and not just attract them, also to retain them, because along the line they have volunteerism. Captain Londy has emphasized the service, because it's not only motivation has not only have to come from the external factors. One has also to realize why they are doing this. Now, most actually, what did I write here? As an IMO Goodwill Maritime Ambassador, it's one of our mandates to advocate for the seafaring and the maritime professions, because I do not want, look at this panel, look at the average age range. I am the youngest, and I no longer want to be like that. I do not want to be always the youngest. I want to have someone else, the predecessors, who will be the other young, because this is our future. This everything that we are doing, the benefactors will always be the future generations. As I always want to say, you cannot spell maritime, MARITIME, without me. Me and my generation. So there, I hope that many will be enticed to join the industry and stay on the industry, because that's one of my primary concern. Are we still going to have seafarers in the future who are competent, who are adept, who are socially inclined, and who are empathic to their crew, not only to be always to results oriented, because it's not always like that. Thank you.
I always enjoy this quote by Yrhen, because I think it's so accurate, and for the sustainability of this industry, it is so important to start making this maritime professional title a bit more sexy, if I may use that word. I saw Londy clapping because I know she's doing an incredible job at a youth initiative. Maybe you can very briefly, because we are running out of time, tell us something about that, and I do want to chat to you privately about that. But she clapped on what Yrhen said, so I'll let you.
So mine became a bit different when I became Africa's first, because the noise started following me, the noise, the media, the cover page and all of that. But what lingered the most and every single day was that DM that came on my Instagram to say, Sister Londy, I want to be like you. But now how do I then say, yes, you can be like me? So I would come and say, I chose not to be Rose of the Titanic. I chose to captain the Titanic. And it will become so appealing to the young ones. Now the problem is, can I trust that when I do send the youth under the Global Maritime Youth, which is now the foundation I've founded, I can actually trust them that someone will hold their hand and protect them as much as I fought for my protection in the days where I still was very much active. But it's that thing of saying the 2%, which Yrhen just explained now, those things as captains of industry now, we cannot comfortably sleep at night when we don't have enough authority to see the change we want to bring about our industry, and just tick box exercise events, sitting and talking and not holding each other accountable. That's why I sit now. My consulting firm is War Maritime Experts because of women, War Maritime. And I will sleep better at night knowing that from the 2%, tomorrow we can be 2.01, and I know I've contributed to that 0.1, you know? So I think I'm trying to really role model and cultivate the change I want to see. And I don't want to say what the IMO is doing. I don't want to say what the next person is doing. It's my responsibility too. And I'm playing my part. So that's why I'm really, really excited about what you've just said, now. Thanks for that, Gina.
It is so important, and we each need to be doing something about it and taking the matter in our own hands, because it's only through voices like this that we will see true change and support the IMO in the vision, because they can only do as much. Without the help of everybody and each and every one, you can't go much further. So I know Gina is also running to catch a plane at some point, so I'll go into our next and final question, even though this discussion could really go on for a few hours, I feel, with this incredible crew we've gathered on that stage. But I said at the beginning of the introduction that I wanted to put together a list of what we wish people knew, understood, appreciated about crew, or what crew wanted them to know. So I'll start with Gina, since she's in a hurry to catch a plane, and then we'll do the rounds again and conclude.
Thank you a lot for giving me first the speech. It's a bit challenging for me here to discuss about shipping. People look at me and they are, what she's talking about? It's strange. Initially, I'm very happy because Londy, Bernard, Yiannis, they are young people and they are so passionate about shipping, and their point of view is to the point. So we can see that it doesn't matter the age. You can start the seafarer career at any age if you love it. So the things that I would like the people to know about us, about the seafarers, is that shipping a maritime is a big deal. It's a really big deal. If you, let's say, Mr. Essam, do you have a Rolex? Maybe yes. So if you open the Rolex in the back, you will see so many mechanisms, so many rotating things. So in order to see just three vertical lines moving and making around, so you don't see the big deal behind of the watch, but you see only the tie. It's the same, the shipping. Shipping is running in the background. You put gas in your car, you order something from China or from Shell, 90% it's coming through ships, through containers or through tankers, or you're just taking vacation with the cruise ship because you want the 7-star luxury. All this, there are some invisible heroes, as also stated last year, and they are key workers. The society stopped, but the shipping society didn't stop. If the ships had stopped also last year during COVID, we should, most probably the society wouldn't have the masks, pharmacy, maybe anything that it is necessary. It's, the transportation of goods in the safest way through ships till now. So people who are in charge, Mr. Essam and whoever else is gonna listen, give to the seafarers the repatriation, because the charterers still yet, they don't allow them to go back home. Let's say you're 6-7 months on board and you have a new contract, not as a seafarer ship, and the charterers say, no, you will not disembark 14 days before arrival or 14 days before arrival to the charting port, or we don't want at all because we need to have a good matrix. So the people who are on board Eventually, they are 8 months on board, 9 months. And this is bad for our mental health. Trying to be professional, trying to do our job in the safest way, but it's a job that it is done by a human to deliver the goods at your home away from her home. We have to understand that. This is my point of view. I try to be straightforward and to the point.
Thank you very much. No, I think that was exactly to the point, and the fact that we had to be discussing why seafarers are key workers to start off with is just beyond me. But I think the ICS and the IMO leading the campaign have done a great job in it. And also, I think that now that you've mentioned how Rolex gets to you, maybe the people around you are more interested in the discussion. So hopefully it'd be easier to
I know how to catch attention.
Yes. Almost definitely. Captain Rami, would you like to go next and share your thoughts on what you would want the world to know and appreciate and understand about seafarers?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Gina. I believe that there is a lot of work, as Captain Gina also said. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for the communities. The international community should recognize more on what the seafarers are doing out there. We are essential workers. We are key workers. We run the world economy, and we sacrifice a lot to make sure everything you have right now gets there on time. But also, there is also one thing that I need to, from my own experience, I'd like to share that I would love that people appreciate about the seafarers is like, whenever the time any seafarer decides to, settle down, start a shore-based job, whoever, I had this experience there whereby when you go and apply for a job, no matter how many years you have spent on the ship, the majority of the interviewers or employers would treat you as like coming with no experience at all, as if, you have to get a little bit of what office politics is all about. And, it's somehow unfair for someone who's been trained and groomed from day one, from a very young age, in a very wholesome kind of education. You study anything in between the heavens and the deep sea. So you act as the not only a navigator, an engineer for that matter. You also know a lot about meteorologies, firefighting, medical aid. So it's somehow gets frustrating when you go and you decide you want to settle down for any reason you have. So some people don't really, they continue until retirement, but some people, for some kind of circumstances, they decide to go for a shore-based job, and they've been treated like as if they have no experience. They are coming with no relevant experience, if I may say, which is somehow I wish people could change.
That's such a valid point, and actually I happen to have heard this before, and I find it quite interesting in what perspective, because you bring so many skills to that role. It's quite fascinating why there would be this perception, but it's a very valid point. I see Essam is clapping, so I'll pass over to you to share your thoughts on what you would want people to know, and maybe something on what Captain Rami has shared.
Thank you, Gina. I was clapping after Londy, but Rami deserves it, and he gave a good point on this. Really, what I want people to know about is the hard time and the difficult time that seafarer passing at sea. We maybe a few brief what we've just all said. I think that was one of the first topics we mentioned. But for me, it is one of the most important jobs in the world. And it's the second oldest job known in history. If you go and reach in history, this is what I've read. Maybe the Italians can correct us on this, but we'll read it. And the quantity of sacrifice that women and men at sea is doing and giving is important. That's why we need seafarers. And for Yrhen, I'm the youngest not among you here, I'm sure, but even I'm the oldest here. I'm the youngest permanent representative at IMO. So that is one of the things, and I'm trying to push on this because we need to hear the voice of youngsters and people at IMO. So what from here really, COVID was a bad thing happened for everyone. We were affected, but without the sacrifices of the women and men at sea, the logistic chain will be broken. People will have difficulties to live with and others. So what I would say, maybe dialogue among young and older people, among sectors, to know more what are we doing, among Goodwill ambassadors as Yrhen and others. I'm sure everyone among us here is an ambassador for this job. In Saudi these days, we are campaigning about the logistics services and trying to explain to people what we are doing, bringing cartoons, bringing things. So trying to raise awareness out there. And we will be sharing this with IMO member states and others. Regarding the 2% of women only in maritime, I don't think this is true, by the way. And I'm the only one, I think, who raised that alarm because maybe 2% of seafarers, and the data is not correct. I think there is more, and I wish we have more, and we have to see 50, even more than 50%. And this is what we will push for. As key workers, Saudi, and I'm sure all of us here, we know and we acknowledge us seafarers as key workers, but we are calling on others to do that. Finally, the IMO Gender Equality Network, IMO Gen, I'm calling all of you and everybody who will be listening to us is to join that social media accounts on Instagram, on LinkedIn and Twitter. We are doing our best. I'm the social media guy on this network, by the way, even it was made by the ladies, where I call them the ladies in IMO. But I'm really promising you that we are working on preparation for next generation of seafarers, about new and best lives for seafarers on other sectors. And also we are focusing now really on greener shipping or others, but this transition needs to prepare the seafarers for the future. And this is what we are doing in IMO, not only Saudi Arabia for sure, it's all the IMO member states and partners. And I'm calling on you here to help us to understand that. So finally, I would say thank you. Happy days of seafarers to everyone. And I salute all seafarers outside there, even though I'm not in the uniform anymore, but this is what they deserve. So thank you, Gina.
Thank you so much, Sam, for that. I'm very glad that you mentioned the gender network and to raise awareness and invite people to be a part of it. And actually, I'll quickly also just say congratulations, because the Saudi representative at the IMO was the only who put together a panel by itself for the Women in Maritime Day. And I think that says a lot. So yeah, well done on that. And I was blessed to be a part of it. So very grateful about that. Moving on, Yiannis, would you like to also share your thoughts as we're wrapping up this final question?
Sure, yeah. So like I said, there are three things that I'd like people to kind of take away from this. And some of it's kind of already been echoed, but we have very few touch points. Like the general public has very few touch points with seafarers. You'll always deal with an accountant and a lawyer. So you'll start to hear what's going on in their industry. The second a seafarer clocks on, they're kind of out of sight and out of mind. And that's also perceived in the media as well, where, we very rarely hear about what is going on, and that's kind of pertinent now at the moment. If you live in the UK, you're hearing all about these strikes, seafarers, the numbers always float around 1.5 million seafarers responsible for 90% of global trade. The other 10%, no doubt, they have had a hand in as well. The raw materials probably would have, made some way by sea as well. And they get the job done with minimal fuss. Very rarely do we hear about them. And when we do hear about them, it means that there's been a serious failing going on. And the pandemic highlighted that. And it was horrific, some of the stories that we read during that period. And I think, when I met you during Posidonia, Gina, it's great to see that there's someone out there in the media who wants to get the seafarers word out there. And this panel is exactly the right thing to do, to get people to start having those touch points, to start understand, okay, this is, an industry I've never heard about. And here's a job role that I've never kind of encountered. And now starting to understand what is going on. And like the last thing, every Christmas, I always see a post sort of making everyone spare a thought about, the police officers and the doctors and the firefighters are on call during Christmas Day. I just tell everyone that on Christmas Day, spare a thought for the Seafarer, because those guys, you know, they're on their shift and then they don't get to go home at the end of the day. You know, they'll have a 5-10 minute call with their friends and their family. They'll watch their kids open the present through a screen, and that's it. And guess what? They'll miss New Year's as well, and they'll probably miss a birthday, and they'll miss all these events. So next time there's a major family event or Christmas or whatever it is you celebrate, just spare a thought for the Seafarer who won't be able to be there with his family.
Most definitely. That's so important. And I think on two different phases, because it comes back to what Yrhen was saying about the youth and making this industry visible for one and attractive to the younger generation. But this final point on paying, you know, a minute and some being grateful to these people who are really behind the scenes running the show. I mean, in the UK, we were clapping for the NHS every Thursday evening, if I'm not mistaken, and that was fantastic. But where do those medicines come from, and where does all the other supplies come from? So, yeah, that's so important. Yrhen, would you like to share also your thoughts on this for this list?
Right. Actually, I made the 3 points also. First, please be kind to us when we are in port, especially this pandemic. We are not there to spread the virus. We do not want to infect you as much as we want to be infected. In fact, we are more vulnerable in catching the virus than you, because it just so happened that we work on different places. Secondly, we also want to see your beautiful sceneries. Please let us go to shore leave. Many chose this profession because we are adventurous by heart and wants to travel into different places. I myself is one of those motivations. And thirdly, we are still human. We are not just worthy when there are accidents. We are not supposed to be a subject of ridicule when unfortunate events happen. There are humans working on board those floating platforms delivering your needs. Perhaps it's time that we also give them the recognition, the appreciation, the visibility that we all have been clamoring for. And again, happy Day of the Seafarer. And I hope this will not just be during these momentous moments like Day of the Seafarers and World Maritime Day that we are clamoring for seafarers. It has to be an everyday event, because every day we are using the goods that the seafarers are delivering. Thank you.
That's so true, and I think every day we should be paying tribute to those seafarers around the world. I know Gina has to leave, so I'll just let her say a bye before I comment on it, and we go to Londy for the closing. Gina, you.
Thank you a lot for being part in this panel. I'm sorry that I'm gonna leave, but in 30 minutes starting the boarding, so I have to board. No. I wish you a happy day today and safe travels to me and to whoever who will travel, because you know, seafarers, we are always with a passport, and please embrace the seafarers. Don't forget, as you mentioned before, it's not only the day today, it's every day that we need to embrace seafarers. We are the invisible heroes.
Thank you so much, Gina, for joining us. Indeed, you are. Have a safe flight. I'll go quickly back to what Yrhen said and then on to Londy so we can wrap up. But what you said at the beginning about people perceiving seafarers as spreading the virus when they come to port, I was actually mortified to understand that while one of my friends was sailing, people were allowed to come on board at port visits. Seafarers could not disembark the vessel, but then you were sailing and leaving shore and being miles away with no medical access within means. And I was just thinking, but that should not be happening, full stop. I mean, you're more at danger and away from, you know, driving to a hospital that's 10 minutes down the road. So yeah, I think that's quite an important point to understand. And last but not least, of course, Londy, what are the things that you wish people would know and understand about seafarers before we wrap up today's very, very interesting panel?
Awesome, thanks. Because my colleagues have just colored it up perfectly in their roles and rights and the seats they hold right now, I want to then put the focus to the youth. Mainly because I do know that most youth, they refer to seafarers as maybe rather us in penguin suits, and the diversity of the industry is not necessarily role modeled, so to speak. So I think that for me, to make sure that the youth understands that if you want to be a radio DJ, or if you want to be a DJ, think of the cruise liners. If you want to be a captain, think of the ships. If you want to be a makeup artist, and if you're good as a makeup artist, think of being a makeup artist on the cruise liners. If you're an electrician or what, just if we can often try to portray our industry as that of a fully fledged economy, then maybe kids will understand that if there's unemployment on the land side, the ocean also belongs to us. I wish that the youth would understand that seafarers come with so much diversity, and they don't only just come as captains and engineers, they come as colorful as what you can imagine, every single role on the land also. So because you guys focused on the more professional side, I just want to bring the youth here to say, hey, we are also cool kids on the ships, and so come join us.
And that's so important, but because I feel especially now the industry is going through some exciting changes. There's so much with automation and technology. So there's so many options out there, and it really is a sea of opportunities. So it's very good that you highlighted this point, Londy. So thank you so much for that. On that note, I don't know if anybody would like to add something, but we are running short of time, so we'll have to wrap up, unfortunately. I don't see any volunteers, but thank you so much for your amazing input. It's been such a pleasure hosting you all on board Oceans Arena stage for this Day of the Seafarer panel, and sharing your thoughts and input on what life at sea really is all about and what you wish people will knew about it. So hopefully we can put that list together. So joining me today was, of course, Engineer Essam Alammari, Captain Londy Ngcobo, Yrhen Balinis, Captain Gina Darsaklis, Captain Rami Breiki, Yiannis Fafalios, and of course, in the opening remarks, Mr. Esben Poulsson. I'm Gina, Panayiotou, the host of the show, and I would also very much like to thank, I see Essam has raised his hand before I conclude, so go ahead.
Sorry, Gina, I just wanted to say thank you again to you and to Mr. Esben. And I'm very pleased to see my colleagues around the world and around the globe. I salute you all. Wish you a happy Day of Seafarers again, and keep it up. And I'm sure together we can make it. Regarding, I've always said we have to sit on a table and discuss. Every time, I'm sure every country, every area, every region have their stories, and they have done great work to do. Just share it with us. We don't want to start from zero. We want to continue with the great work you've done. And sorry, I know the time, but thank you, Dina, again. Thank you.
No, thank you, everybody. Collaboration is key in this journey. And I just also, on a final note, wanted to thank, of course, everybody for watching and the support of Young Ship UAE, who's always by our side in this, the youth of the industry. Wister UK, of course, representing the women in the UK. The Mission to Seafarers, who do an exceptionally great job, I think, at welcoming seafarers at port. And if you want to look more into the work, there will be a link below this panel to see what they do and how they support seafarers when they get to port. And of course, the sponsors, Sea Horizon Offshore Marine, Zenith Maritime Services, Mubarak Marine, Watson Farley Williams, ABS, and Nimble Legal. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you to everybody for watching, and hope you enjoyed our journey on board. And thank you to our amazing crew. Happy Day of the Seafarer.
Thank you, Dina.